Welcome to the Soul Star podcast with Alli and Mandy from Soul Star Energy Collective. We are intuitives, healers, and spiritual coaches here to help bring everybody back to their own intuition. And we have a special guest today, Megan Mary. She is a best-selling metaphysical author and dream analyst, which is super cool. So welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
for
being
having
here.
me, Allison.
Yeah.
Megan,
And Mandy.
thank you. We really love to start when we have a guest on, just to start with their journey. So, will you share a little bit about how you got to where you're at and how you learned about dreams and analyzing them and all that sort of stuff?
Yes. So I always go back to my childhood at the beginning because that's when I first really started my fascination with dreams. I had a lot of really amazing flying dreams that I used to have all the time. And then I also had recurring nightmares, and I wanted to really understand what they meant and why I was having them. And I did a lot of dabbling in every kind of new age subject trying to figure that out. But I never really got to a point where I felt I was finding something that was giving me the answers. I was just reading other people's answers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at a certain point, after my teenage years, I stopped paying attention to them
Okay.
and didn't really kind of just push them aside. And even though I was always very mystically inclined, I don't think that that was really a main focus of my life at the time. And I've really spent most of my entire career in the digital marketing space, really doing
Mm.
websites and making websites and working on web marketing and things like that. And so very technological, logical, but still creative space, but nothing
Yeah.
like the space that I ended up in when I really experienced a series of medical crises that led me to decide, okay, I need to do something to help myself because this isn't working, and what should I do? And I started to spend some more time meditating and really doing a lot of introspective work.
Mm.
And when I did that, I started to open that door again to my dreams and started to pay attention to them again. And when I started to listen, there was a lot of stuff coming from the dreams, a lot of profound imagery, a lot of messages, a lot of guidance.
Wow.
And I started to receive the emphatic message that I had to do this out in the world, and I had to do it now. Like I had to move
Oh,
fast. And I was not ready to do that.
Yep.
I was not even on social media. I didn't want to be put myself out there as an introvert. That was a terrifying idea. I certainly didn't want to be on video. I didn't want to talk publicly about it. And so I had to do a whole bunch of stuff to get over that.
Yeah.
And then it all happened like a giant snowball. It was like a freight train. I started my podcast, I started my business, I started writing my book again, and
Mm.
everything just went as fast as it could. And I started working with women around the world,
Wow.
helping them figure out what their dreams were and helping them see the value of dream work.
mm,
Yeah, absolutely. That's
yeah.
amazing. I'm like, it is scary to step into that world when you've kind of like we both experienced that. I would say me more than even Mandy because I definitely was like, don't look at me, I don't want to talk. All of those things. It's really scary because it's the
Hmm.
fear of being judged, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So absolutely, I can relate to that.
I wonder, I wonder how you feel like, do you feel like I know everybody's receiving messages and guidance in their dreams. However, do you feel like certain people or there's a certain group of people that's how they're receiving their messages and guidance more intentionally
Mm.
and vibrantly, I guess? Would you say?
Yes, and I've even read studies that say that certain personality types are more
Mm.
likely to be willing to listen to their dreams, willing to entertain the idea that their dreams are meaningful in terms of the Myers-Briggs types analysis of personalities, that certain personalities are much more based in tangible evidence and logic, and others are much more drawn to hidden mysteries and
Mm.
introspection and
Hmm.
willing to consider things that haven't been proven yet. And so I think there's a predilection there depending on your personality type.
Yeah.
There's a lot
Interesting.
of things that can determine the level of dream recall we have as well. For
Mm.
women, our estrogen levels really affect our level of dream recall. And
Oh.
so sometimes we will remember them more than others.
Huh.
And then there's a lot of people who just say, well, that's not going to work for me because I don't remember my dreams, or I'm thrilled to hear this idea, but
Yeah.
how do I do it because I don't remember them? And I don't think that they're left out in the cold. I think
Yeah.
that they just have to learn the techniques to cultivate that habit, just like anyone saying, well, meditation would really help my stress level, but I don't know how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. I find that fascinating. So, what you're saying, because we have created and teach certain techniques in our courses for people to understand and access their intuition so
Mhm.
that they can start trusting the messages that they're receiving. So, what you're saying is that there's actually techniques that you teach people on how they can recall their dreams.
Yes.
Oh,
Interesting.
so
Because that
cool.
would be a big thing, right? Like that would definitely be a thing, is because I know I'll wake up and there'll be some times that I'm like, I know I dreamed so many dreams. And then I just have fragments of it. And then there's some that I wake up and they're so visceral, like it's happened and I can remember every part of it. So that's very interesting because I'm like, I guess if there's somebody, because we've talked about this, I think with students of ours and asked like in their dreams, and they'll be like, I don't dream, I don't remember anything. And you're like, wow, really? So it's
Yes.
all the differences, right?
Yes. And a lot of people do say that, but they do.
They
Everybody has
do.
about 3 to 5 dreams a night. They're
Yeah.
just not opening that door.
Okay. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And they can if they choose
Yes.
to.
Mhm.
Amazing. Oh, I love that. That's so
Yeah.
cool. That's so
I
cool.
I'm curious, like, do you find like there's because Ali was touching a little bit on some dreams feel really visceral and real, and then
Mhm.
some not so much. Can you
Mhm.
share a little bit in the difference between those two? Like, and there must be different types of dreams, like multiple types of dreams.
Yeah.
Can you touch a little bit on that?
Yes. So two things there. Well, really three things. The types of dreams we can talk about after, but first I want to talk about the time of night when you have your dreams, because
Mm.
when you have your dreams early in the night, like right after you first go to sleep, sometimes those can be shorter and have to do more with mundane topics.
Mm.
Whereas the ones that are early in the morning before
Those-
you wake up, at the end of you've been there for 6, 8 hours already,
Yeah.
those are the ones that tend to be longer and more complex, more epic sagas that go on forever and you remember all that. And there's
Yes.
all this stuff happening and there's so much detail, and so the brain functions differently depending on those. And then um what was the other thing that you said? Because there was three things. So that was one of them. Oh, the different types of dreams, but there was
Mhm.
something else in there.
Mm.
I said the different types, like some feel so real and
Oh,
some don't.
yes.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yes. So the emotional aspect is what I wanted to touch
Oh,
on.
yes.
So when
Oh,
you're
oh, yes.
dreaming, parts
Yeah.
of your brain are, let's just say for all intents and purposes, turned off, and
Okay.
parts of them are active as if you were awake.
Yeah.
When you're dreaming, the limbic system is in full operation as if you were awake, and that's what controls your emotion part of your brain. And so when you're dreaming, you're experiencing the emotions of the dream as if you were awake. So your brain is processing them as if you were awake, which is why they are so, you say, visceral or so impactful, and also why sometimes you wake up with what I call the dream hangover, where you feel like it did happen,
Yes.
and you can't convince your brain otherwise because your brain processed it as if it did.
Oh.
See.
And so do you feel like that causes problems in people's realities?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've definitely had, like, I've noticed that as I've gone down this spiritual journey and the more I've opened up and connected to my gifts and all of that, my dreams have become a lot more realistic, to the point where I'll be like, was that a dream, or did I actually do that? Like, you know, it's not even like right afterwards. It's like days later and you're like, wait a minute, was that a dream? Because it's so real. But it's crazy how they've evolved since connecting to my intuition. So that must
Yes.
be a thing, I guess. Yeah.
Yes. And there's a lot of spiritual theories that may say that there are other realities going on there in the dream world.
Mm-hmm,
So,
mm-hmm.
but in terms of how we understand them when we wake up, sometimes it'll bring with it a very high energy, and other times it'll bring with it a very low energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of what I do in dream work is that energy transmutation, as you would call it, where I'm trying to take that energy and transform it into something else that is helpful on your journey. So figuring out, okay, I feel really low about this dream. I came out feeling with this low energy. How do I move this energy out and re-understand this dream from a different perspective so that I can use it in a positive way, to
Mm-hmm.
understand, more holistic, and to really transform the way I'm viewing that dream. So it's not telling you, it's helping you figure out what it is, what it means,
Yeah.
and then also helping you integrate that meaning.
Yeah. Yeah. Which makes sense. Yeah, it's funny because, like, you talk about like repeating dreams, because you had the repeating dreams of falling. I have definitely had that since childhood. Even in the dream, I will say, it's like consciously I would say, oh no, not this again. And I will do the fall and I will feel the everything, and it's like, it's awful. I hate it. I hate those ones. I've had them since childhood, but it's like now I'm to the point where I'm like, oh no, not this again, and I can't stop it. But like, one of the dreams that I remember having a recurring when I was married was this dream of either he cheated, or there was this it would be a dream of like feeling like I didn't matter anymore, or that kind of like discarded feeling. And it was so weird because our whole relationship, I'd randomly have it. It became a thing where I'd be like, oh, you were so mean to me in the dream last night. And he's like, again, sorry. And I'm like, yeah, again. But it was like the weirdest thing. And I remember just being like, I have no idea, but it continued our whole relationship. And so yeah, it makes me wonder in that sense of like when we have these reoccurring dreams, especially I guess about somebody, um, is that just our subconscious fears coming into,
For sure.
yeah,
Yes. Because our
interesting.
subconscious is 95% of our mind, and the conscious is only 5. So, and
Yeah.
dreams are the land of the subconscious. So everything that comes, I wouldn't say everything, but because a lot of it can be spiritual realms, but
Yeah.
aside from that, a lot of it is your subconscious. And when you have something recurring, it's usually because there's something you're not addressing.
Mm.
So there's a message coming from your subconscious,
Mm.
whether it's a problem or it's an opportunity or it's a solution. Either way, there's something
Yeah.
that subconsciously you're aware of that consciously you're not. And your dreams are trying to portray that in a story to get you to pay attention. And if you're not paying attention, it's going to rejigger it into a different story and a different story until you pay attention. And many times when we keep track of our recurring dreams, there's differences, but there's a common thread. There's a
Mm.
similarity. Like you said, oh, it's this dream again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so you can see it's interesting to look at, okay, it was that dream again, but how is it different this time?
Yeah. And it was different times. Yeah.
And
Right.
Would you say that it's like the emotional aspect that's usually what you pay attention to? Because like if you're having a similar reoccurring dream, it's usually like I would imagine the scenario, the storyline is always slightly different, but the emotional aspect would be the common thread. Wouldn't you? Is that usually how it goes?
Yes and no, because I used to have tons of flying dreams, and in some of them, I could fly effortlessly, and it
Mm.
was exhilarating. And in other dreams, I couldn't get off the ground, and it was
Mm.
frustrating. And maybe I was trying to get away from something, and I was pumping my arms, and it wasn't working. And other times, I could just shoot off and, you know,
Yeah.
fly effortlessly. So if I were to say to you, I had a flying dream again last night,
Right.
you wouldn't necessarily know what the emotional content was. And that's partly why I encourage people as part of my method to really pay attention to the emotions, because the
Mm.
emotions aren't necessarily obvious. You could say, well, I had a snake dream last night, and I could say, oh, that must have been terrifying. And you could have said, no, it was my pet snake. So
Completely.
it really
Yeah.
depends.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
interesting. I know.
So what kind of different types of dreams are people having?
I think in general, there are, it's important to I don't like to summarize in the way that I don't like to compartmentalize and say, well, yes, I do believe that we originate from a universal consciousness, but I don't think that our dream messages can be reduced to a set of 24 archetypes or whatever it is.
Mm.
Right.
Hmm.
So I really like to put the meaning of the dream back with the dreamer and
Oh,
say that this is a conglomeration of your personal associations and your history and your experiences, and that I can't necessarily know what the meaning is uniquely for you. What I
Mm.
can do is ask the right questions
Mm.
to help you draw it out from your subconscious, and then you can draw your own conclusion about what it means for you. And so, while I think there's commonalities because our human experience is common
Hmm.
hmm.
amongst us, the unique meaning, I think, is very specific to each dreamer.
Right. So what you're saying is like, overall, a dream about a snake, for example, could mean, let's just say transformation. That's like the overarching theme perhaps of a snake dream, but there's so many layers to analyzing the specific dream for that one person because of their experience in their life, their patterns, their beliefs, their situation, that sort of stuff. So even though like in the dream dictionaries they like to say, oh, if you dream about a snake it's about transformation, that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, I would remove that first definition
Yeah.
before we even
Mm.
go into the session because,
Right.
and I have I often am quoted by saying to break up with your dream dictionary because I don't think that it's a good habit. It's
Yeah.
an interesting way to start because then you're at least showing interest in your dreams, but it's misleading because it's giving you all these other cultural tropes about what it might mean in other mythologies or to other people or in other literature. And it's not looking at your specific meaning. So some people are terrified by them, some people are not, some people
Yeah.
have a completely different, might have a unique life experience
Mm-hmm.
association with them.
Hmm.
Um, and it might have nothing to do with that meaning.
Mm. Yeah,
Which makes
interesting.
sense.
What do you say like about, so I often will dream about people that I used to know that I don't really know anymore. And these dreams usually come in the morning where it's a very real um experience, and then I wake up feeling, whatever emotion I felt in that dream I'll feel through the whole freaking day. And I'm like, why did I dream about that person again? Like for example, ex-boyfriends, often I'll have dreams of ex-boyfriends that I haven't talked to them in 20 plus years. I'm like, why am I dreaming about this person? I have no connection to them. We're not even friends on social media. Like what is happening there? Can you share any
Mhm.
insight?
Anytime that a person appears in your dream, what I like to do first is one, say, okay, well, do you know them? Is it someone that you personally know, or is it someone that you just know of, like a celebrity,
Mm.
but you don't really know them? And either way, then, if you had to describe them in 3 words, what words would you use to describe them? And not necessarily how they look, but their behavior, their proclivities, like just how they are and from a personality standpoint.
Hmm.
And if that person appears in your dreams, sometimes it is a reflection of yourself and a
Mm.
representation of whatever words you choose to describe that
Mm.
person. So it might be that that person was very outgoing and optimistic, or it might be that they were very pessimistic and negative. What do you associate with that person? So
Mm.
what's their role essentially in showing up? And then what are they doing in the dream? And what are you doing? And where are you?
Mm.
So are you in a setting that pertains to this person, or is it a completely different setting in terms of like when you knew them, if you don't know them anymore, or if you don't know them at all? And so all of that can help us figure out, okay, where is this placed? Why is this person showing up? What is the role that this person is playing in the story?
Mhm.
Mm.
Because you really want to look at your dreams like a little mini movie, like a story. And that can help us understand, okay, why is that person showing up? And it could be, anyone from people you've had relationships with, the people you've been friends with, the people you don't even know. Like
Mm.
that's why I use the celebrity um, example, because a lot of times you'll have a dream about just, a musician or an artist, a person you've never met, and they'll be playing a role in your dream as
Yeah.
if you know them or as if they know
Right.
you.
Mhm.
And you don't know them at all. So what do you think they are like?
Mm.
Mm.
And how are they being in the dream, which they might not be like at all in real life? And so that kind of gives you some indication of, okay, is this a part of yourself perhaps that you're projecting in the role of this person?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Well, and I wonder, like, because I know I've had dreams where I've been back in like my middle school, where all of a sudden I'm
Yeah.
walking the halls and I'm like, what
Yep.
the heck?
Exactly.
Right. And but I guess like if I was to go back to those dreams, I think if I was to look at how it made me feel, it was
Mm-hmm.
actually bringing me back to how I did feel when I was that age, attending the schools, and there
Yes.
was a lot of like anxiety and all of that. So, which is fascinating. So it's not necessarily about the school, but it's bringing even, I guess, back to
Yeah.
your inner child in a sense of
Yes.
that part of you that is still like wanting to be seen and healed,
Yep.
right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So interesting.
Yeah. I feel like I'm going to have such a
Yeah.
different perspective on dreams moving forward.
Especially from the past, like when we
Yeah.
when we're seeing people from the past,
Yeah.
because we always talk about inner child work, and inner child, I feel like inner child can go all the way up to past versions of yourself.
Yes.
Right. So it's
There's a
like
lot of layers to that.
a
Yeah.
lot of layers. Yeah. But it makes me think like that's subconsciously a way to sit there and be like, okay, this needs some work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about nightmares? What do you feel like
Oh.
when you're having, because nightmares and psychic attacks that feel like nightmares. Um, First of all, do you feel like there's a difference in those two? And then also, can you explain like the purpose of a nightmare, maybe, or a dream that makes you feel fearful or scared? That's
hmm
the same
I
word.
think if we refer to, maybe let's call them story dreams.
Okay.
Mm.
If you have a story dream and it's a nightmare,
Hmm.
there's usually an opportunity there to look at the story as it's playing out.
Mm.
And before we move past that, I did want to mention about the dream where you're falling and where you actually were able to
Oh yeah.
consciously say to yourself, "This is one of my falling dreams." There's
Yeah,
a real
that's
opportunity
weird.
there for you to
Okay.
have a lucid alternate ending to
Yeah.
that, um,
Oh, and I've
because you were able
experienced
to
that a few
because you were
times,
able
not
to recognize. Yeah.
recognize. So that's a thing where you can all of a sudden be because
Yes.
that's super trippy. And I actually experienced it, not a following one, but just a regular dream. And it was a few weeks ago. And I remember saying to Mandy, oh my goodness, I was in this dream and I needed to get from point A to point B, but there was a bunch of people in my way and I was getting frustrated. And all of a sudden, I consciously came in and said, you're in control of this dream. Just go there. And then I just ended up there. And I was like, I've never experienced.
Ah, yes. Okay. So that's spontaneous lucidity, really.
Oh, that's so
Yes.
crazy. Okay.
Yes. And
Interesting.
lucidity is very powerful because when you recognize, like you did, that you're in
Yeah.
a dream, then you have
Yeah.
the ability to change the course,
Yeah.
which is very
Right.
powerful, particularly if you're falling or in some other precarious situation.
Yeah.
But back to the nightmare situation, if it's a story dream, a lot of times people will come to me with nightmares and we'll go through them and they'll say, well, I'm so glad that I did this because I would have never viewed that dream the way I do now.
Mm.
And now it's given me this whole new perspective on what this could be about. And I see
Mm.
that it's not as bad as I thought it was. And
Mm.
I can also have a different way of looking at it. Um, I also think that one of the sometimes nightmares are the only dreams people remember.
Mm.
And that's because they're so powerful. And that's because of the emotional content. And so
Mm.
it gets their attention,
Mm.
even if they're not paying attention, even if they don't want to remember their dreams. And
Mm.
sometimes that leads them to not want to remember them because, they have the nightmares.
Yeah.
But the nightmares are really just like the recurring, trying to get our attention with our emotions because there is something that really needs attention.
Mm.
Mm.
So,
So you're not necessarily healing it in the dream. It is like this needs to be healed. So we're bringing it into your conscious awareness so that you
yes.
can do the work consciously. Because,
Hmm.
okay. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because when you do that conscious work, it reflects back into your subconscious
Right.
world. So your dreams change the more work you do in this space.
Oh, that makes
Yeah.
sense. So
Yeah.
the more healing work you do in this space, your dreams will change and reflect where you're at energetically
Yes.
in a conscious space. Oh, so fascinating.
Yes.
That's
Huh.
interesting.
That's very
Yeah.
interesting. My
Yeah.
son told me the other day that he's lucid dreaming and he can control his dreams. Not every night, but a lot. And he'll be
Hmm.
like, he's practicing it.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really
Yeah.
interesting. It's
Yeah.
Yeah,
interesting,
that was
like, yeah, that it kind of like, I feel like, because in my head, I'm like, it's not like I intentionally did it. And I don't even know if I could go into a dream right now and be like, I'm going to do this. So it's interesting that he's practicing it, like
yeah, you
going
can with
in.
practice. That was one of the first
Mm.
books on dreams that I ever bought was Lucid Dreaming by Stephen
Mm.
LaBerge. And it was written in the 70s. He was one of the first people to actually study dreams in a laboratory.
Wow.
And they were doing actual studies, and they still do a lot of studies trying to get people to indicate when they were dreaming. And they used to have them on an MRI, and they would tell them a certain eye motion to do when they would realize they were in the dream, so
Yeah.
that they
Oh,
could tell in the lab that then they were lucid dreaming. So,
crazy.
yeah,
Oh,
What about prophetic dreams? Is that the right word?
right.
So
Yeah.
people can dream about future events or
Hmm.
predicting things for
Yep.
themselves in their life. Is that something that you can practice doing, or is that just something that comes in for certain people? Or what are your thoughts around that?
Whenever people ask me about that, I like to bring in the concepts of quantum physics because
mm,
it really puts into question the time-space continuum.
yeah.
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 And so quantum really says that everything is happening all at once.
Yeah.
So there is no past, there is no future. So if you're perceiving something that hasn't manifested yet in your physical space, it doesn't mean that it didn't happen yet.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
And it doesn't mean necessarily that you foresaw it because that
already
it's
happening.
right.
Yeah.
Um, of course, it is possible. Many people have done it, but I think that the point of that is that we are just tuning into a different radio station
Mm.
where realizing that maybe it isn't the linear thing that we think it is.
Yeah. And
Mm.
can you, is there a way to tell a difference between a prophetic dream versus just a regular dream? Would it be an
I think
emotional thing?
those fall into the visitation category where you have this sense of knowing that
Mm.
it's not a story dream.
Ah, well,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
I need to ask for a prophetic dream so I can tell what the difference is.
To feel
Yeah,
it.
and I think there's a lot of concern also and confusion between those two. I think it's it's splitting hairs in a way because a lot of people are concerned. I had this dream that this terrible thing happened.
Mm.
Does that mean it's going to happen? And
Yeah.
not necessarily, usually not, because it's a metaphor.
Mm.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that that hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Or in that
And
reality
yeah,
or that realm or that, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
because there's so many different realities happening at the same
right.
time that it's like,
Exactly.
but maybe not in your reality. It's going
Not the
to,
timeline
Right.
that you're on.
yeah, the
Right.
timeline.
And
Yeah.
that it could be something, it could be a possible reality.
Mm.
Mm.
But as soon as you recognize it, you're going to maybe do something that's going to change it, and then it's not going to happen. And that doesn't mean that it wasn't prophetic. It just means that you skewed that by because there are countless possible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Just like the
Yeah.
timelines we talk about where we can, depend on every decision we make, it's kind of creating which timeline we're jumping to.
Exactly.
And so in that sense, like I know when we've kind of gone to the Akashic Records and looked into dreams and stuff, like sometimes it feels like some of the dreams are different realities playing out in the dream state. Like we're
Mhm.
experiencing it. So let's just say it's like those sexy dreams that everybody has with somebody random or like maybe somebody you work with or maybe an old, and you're kind of like, what
Yeah.
the heck was that? Like part of me wonders, is that obviously it could be a metaphor for something, or could that be living that experience, that reality in that moment that could have been a reality, but it's not part of your
Current reality.
timeline.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of those, that's kind of, Freud would say that dreams are all wish fulfillment.
Mm.
And so that's really where he based a lot of his theory on. But Jung, who, was like his partner at first, and then they kind of like broke off because he didn't like his theories, really went the more symbolic, metaphorical way. So, there's a
Interesting.
lot of different ways you can look at that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because
Interesting.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've even had dreams where I've done something horrible in them. And I've woken up thinking, why would you, like, what's wrong with your head?
yeah,
That this would play out in a dream and it can freak you out, right? Because you're like,
Mhm.
I would never do that. And so I've often thought, I'm like, is that just an alternate timeline that was a possibility? Or am I messed up?
I think sometimes the best way to look at those is metaphorically,
Yeah.
because because death in a dream even can just mean the ending of some sort of phase, right? It doesn't
True.
necessarily mean the death of yourself or another person. And so there's a lot of things that can play out in a dream that can seem quite morbid that
Mm-hmm.
can actually, from a metaphorical standpoint, be almost like the snake shedding its skin type
Mm.
situation.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Or having a
Transformational.
baby, having a baby,
Oh,
and
I
you're like,
always
why?
dream I'm pregnant,
Yeah,
always.
Oh, well,
yeah,
that's a lot, that can be a metaphor for a lot of like new possibility, right? It
Yeah,
doesn't
new ideas.
necessarily have to mean that you're physically manifesting a child in this
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
you're creating
You're
something,
manifesting something else. Yeah.
Yeah.
which is so
Yeah.
cool. I love that.
Yeah.
I love
Oh,
that.
so you have written two books. Can
Hmm.
you, because you have one that just released in October, is that right? And then
Yes.
you're writing the third book. Can you tell us a little bit about well, your books in general? I'd love to hear about them.
Yes. So the first book, this is the first book,
Oh, that's so
Mm.
pretty.
and it's called The
Ooh,
Dream Haunters,
I
a
love it.
metaphysical mystery of magic.
I
wow.
love it.
Is it like a
And
storybook? Like a story?
It is, yes.
Oh, I thought it was
Yes. Fiction. Fiction
Okay,
series.
fiction. Sorry. Yes, that's the proper word. Fiction.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's the name of the series is Witches of Maple Hollow.
Mm.
So that came out in October. Book 2 is coming out in May, and it's called The Dream Mirrors.
Mm.
And I'm in the process of writing book 3. And basically the series follows the path of the main character, Hannah Sky. And she's a young woman that's really searching for her place in the world and searching to understand herself. And at the beginning of book 1, she receives a cryptic letter from her missing and eccentric Aunt Julia. And
Mm.
she has a recurring dream that she's always had about a pumpkin patch. She doesn't understand what it means. And that leads her on this spiritual journey
Wow.
to a mysterious island of eternal autumn called Maple Hollow,
Mm.
where she discovers the mystical Sky Manor and her magical family legacy.
Oh, wow.
Fun.
So she is haunted by shapeshifters that are bent on trapping people in their nightmares. But with the help of wise villagers and feline companions, including a talking cat dream guide, she must solve the riddle, unlock her powers, and dive into the dream dimension to save her aunt
Mm.
by Halloween night,
Oh,
when the veil
wow.
between the worlds is thinnest.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So all 3 books really are metaphysical mysteries of magic. It's fantasy, but there's a mystery therein. And they combine spells, music, dreams, vortexes, secret societies, spiritual inheritance, everything you would find in a metaphysical store.
Mm.
Oh,
And there
yeah.
is one in the book as well.
Wow. Oh, I love that.
So
I
Yeah.
love a good series. Like
Yeah.
I love a series. Oh, I'm excited to get this because it's right up our alley, right? Because you're talking about like this spiritual awakening and the journey, and we can relate to all of that. That's so
Mhm.
it is
amazing.
all about that.
I love that.
How
What
It
long
brought
takes
it?
that
place
on? Like
Yeah.
what inspired?
a dream.
Yeah, a dream. Oh, so fast. Even better.
Yes. So
That's so
10 years
fitting.
ago, I had a very vivid dream about a talking, time traveling cat.
What?
And I was like, okay, I wasn't even recording my dreams at the time, and I'd never really written anything creative, except for poetry.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, I need to write this down, and this needs to be like a little short story. And I wrote a few thousand words, and then I put it away.
Wow.
Just like, okay, that was nice, but no way I'm ever going to publish this. Not an author.
Oh my gosh. Those
So,
limiting beliefs, right?
oh
Because
yes,
I think I would probably be the same. I'd be like, who do you think you are? You're not an author. Yeah.
exactly.
Crazy.
And so
Wow.
it wasn't until I had really my series of spiritual awakenings that I went back to the story. But I started writing it again, and when I did, it took a totally different perspective. And the dreams started coming in, and there's a lot of dream scenes in the book. It really alternates between her waking and dreaming because that's what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of celestial influence. They all take place at Mercury retrograde, which we are just finishing
Yeah.
yesterday.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yes. And it really is it's a coming of age story, at least book 1 is, but the rest of the books are just really her finding her place in a visionary and metaphysical way. And
Yeah.
it appeals to both young adult, and new adult because when I first wrote it, it was almost middle grade.
Yeah.
And so it really is cozy and inspirational as much as it
Mm.
is entertaining. And it's an
Yeah.
audiobook also.
Okay.
Oh, I
Cool.
love that.
Do you think that because the cat is a dream guide, but do you think that we have dream guides?
We have spirit guides for sure,
Yeah.
and they show up in our dreams.
They show up in the
Okay.
dreams. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I know
Okay.
we have a guide for like so many. Well, we have our spirit guide, but also when you're going through something, you'll have a guide specific to that. So we have a healing guide, we have an Akashic Records guide. Like there's so many different guides. I was like, I wonder if we have an actual dream guide. But I guess if you're wanting to work within the dream world and like you yourself, that guide would be more influential in working with you specifically in the dreams. So that's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow. And then tell us a little bit about what you do, how you support people, the work that you're doing on the side other than writing your cool series.
I know.
Yes. Yes. So in addition to the publishing house that I started, Inner Realms Publishing, I also started Women's Dream Analysis, which is basically a analysis practice that helps women to understand the value of their dreams. And so I work in private one-to-one sessions, and I also have 90-day program. And in the 90-day program, I work with you very closely over that period of time to look at a series of dreams. And then you pick certain dreams that you want to work deeper on. And I will create guided meditations for you based on that dream, where I overlay sound frequency healing so that you can re-enter the dream in a meditation state, but envision an alternate ending of your choosing, like a choose your own ending.
Oh, so cool.
I love that.
So when somebody's coming to work with you for that 90-day container or whichever, you're working with dreams that they've had already, not dreams that they're having while you're working with them.
It can be that they're having.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. For
So
sure.
cool.
And I also have online dream courses on my website where people can take a self-paced audio course where they can just, get a little taste of my method and how it works and start journaling themselves and start their practice until they're ready to really dive deeper in.
Into that.
Because you shared that you teach certain techniques. So if somebody's wanting to start dreaming more or remembering their dreams, there's certain techniques that you teach so that they can start doing that, right?
Yes. And some of those are covered in the course. And when you go to my website, you can sign up for my newsletter and you'll get a download that's a free dream journal template. And it's basically just a one page that shows you some of the things that you can start paying attention to when you're recording your dreams. And I actually also made a dream journal companion for the dream haunters that I sell on my site. So it looks like the book, but it says dream journal on it. And that allows you to start that practice while you're traveling through Maple Hollow and experiencing Hannah's journey. You can have your own journey and start recording your dreams while you're experiencing it.
So cool. And where can
cool.
people find the book? Is it on Amazon?
It is everywhere, yes. And it's also on my site, meganmary.com. But you can also, it's distributed what we call wide. So you can get it on Amazon, where it did hit #1 bestseller twice already this year. You can also get it everywhere. So it's in libraries, it's on Libro, it's in audiobook, Overdrive, Hoopla, Spotify, everywhere. Yeah.
Congratulations on the book. That's amazing. And then also you have a podcast. So you want to share about your podcast? Yeah.
Yes. So it's called Women's Dream Enlightenment. And it's deep discussions, dream interpretations, and women's stories of spiritual awakening. So I have women come on and open up their dream journals, and I interpret their dreams live on the show. And then I also have women come on and tell their stories of spiritual awakening, what happened to them, how they experienced it, what then they went out and did in the world as a result of that life-changing experience.
Wow. Well, we'll link everything in the show notes so that if you're wanting to connect with Megan Mary, you definitely can. And we will link the Amazon link to your books. And we look forward to hearing about book 3. When do you expect that one to come out?
It'll be Halloween 2025.
Oh, do you release every Halloween?
Yeah. It'll be early October, so everybody can enjoy it all. Yeah, but
I love that. Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to read the first one.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm excited
Mhm.
for you guys to read it and to
Yeah.
have you on the show.
Yes.
Yeah, we're excited.
We will be on
Yes.
Meg and Mary's show soon. So we'll when we do that, we'll share that on our social media and all that sort of stuff. But we just want to say thank you so much for being here with us and teaching us a little bit about dreams and getting us excited to understand our dreams a little bit better. I think there was a lot of clarity actually for me, anyways, listening to you speak and kind of explain a little bit about the dreams and the different types and stuff. So thank you so much for the work that you do, and we're so grateful to have you on to the show today.
Thank you, Mandy. I'm so glad that you found value in what I shared, and I'm really excited for both of you to check out my books and the rest of my site. Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, we'll see everybody next week. Bye.
Bye.